Alrighty, fanboys and fangirls, today is going to be a long episode, so let's not waste any time. But coming up on today's episode of Technoid, we've got some more updates on the Sony Xperia 1 Mark IV, and it might not be a good thing, but it also could be a good thing. We'll talk about it. Also on today's episode, it looks like Samsung is reportedly going to extend their foldable lineup with a brand new foldable that is going to use brand new technology, and one that I think a lot more people might actually like. Also on today's episode, we have more updates on the Pixel Watch as we are now getting closer to the launch. And lastly, Samsung Galaxy Buds 2 and Lives got a firmware update that brings some new and good improved features. I'll explain what they are. All of that on today's episode, so don't go anywhere. Turn the quality up to 1440p or 4K because Technoid starts right now. So story number one, the main story, the Sony Xperia 1 Mark IV. Now, a couple of days ago, I did a video talking about the Xperia 1 Mark IV, and a lot of people are into this new phone. Not just because it is a follow-up model, but also because, truthfully, you know, Sony, like we've always said, and I'll say it again, has potential to make such a great phone, but there are still a few things that they need to address before they can get over the hump. And it seems that a lot of people that, you know, just continue to love these phones, they don't want to acknowledge that. And I have continuously said it many, many times. For as long as you continue to cherish everything and you don't show any negatives to help them grow, they're never going to change and they're never going to fully be able to expand. And it looks like this is about to repeat itself because originally reported, we said that the Sony Xperia 1 IV was scheduled to have a Snapdragon Gen 8 Plus chip. So originally the report was it was going to have the Gen 1 Plus version of the Snapdragon chip. Well, it looks like that's about to change because according to several reports, there have been some internal testings with the Geekbench score now out in the present. There is a phone listing under the model number XQCT54, which was codenamed with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. As we take a look at the benchmarks, we see that the scores are more in line with the Gen 1 chip than they would have been according to what reports are saying about the Gen 1 Plus. We have a single core of 1,204 and a multi-core test of 3,352. Now, there is some reports saying that it could still be the Gen 1 Plus, as it does say that they will be lowering the clock speed to prevent overheating issues, so performance is not expected to increase as much. That is a running report, but we don't have any confirmation on that. But then also going into further, it does say that at least one model will have 12 gigabytes of RAM, which apparently now is backtracking, saying that it will not have 16 gigabytes, which I don't know how that's possible. And then lastly, to round it all off, there are several other models being tested for Europe and of course the United States with eSIM support. And lastly, the price is now officially being tipped at around a likely, which is probably going to be realistic, $14.99. Now, taking all that we've talked about just now, it doesn't sound that good on paper because a lot of people, especially in a phone of this caliber, we've already talked about the importance of what this phone means to the brand of Sony. But now we're seeing even more signs that this phone is starting to take a backseat, and I think Sony knows this because Sony for a while has, I would say, struggled to grab market share here in the United States. In Europe, they've had some mild success with the Xperia 5, but they haven't had any huge hits with the Xperia 1. Now, we understand that this phone is not for every general consumer. This is a phone made for people that want the best of Android. With that being said though, this doesn't look good because of two things. The RAM max, although I would argue 12 gigabytes is probably good, but having that 16 gigabyte option to anybody that is a photographer who wants to use this phone for photo editing or any raw picture taking of any quality, plus being able to use the software and max it out, that's going to be a huge bummer on performance. Now again, it did say that it could just be a Gen 1 Plus, but with a fine tuning to lower the clock speed. We'll have to wait and see for the official event. But if these reports are true, on paper, like I said, this doesn't look good, but at the same breath, it's not really the end of the world. I think it's okay because we have seen many phones do almost the same exact performance with less. So I'm not really gonna beat up Sony for not opting, but for a phone charged for $1,500, I would at least expect them to put the newest Gen 1 Plus chip in the phone to make up the price tag, and also allow the phone to come with 16 gigabytes of RAM, not at least one model. Allow for all models, depending on storage or whatever. And lastly, the last thing I'm gonna say is, really, Sony, even with all this said, as I said in my previous episode, you gotta do two things. Number one, please get that 5G certification with Verizon so you can get it more expanded to the US market, because as I said, once you get that certification for 5G ultra wideband on Verizon's network, they will push your phone. And number two, address the software issue. Please, please do not be like Samsung. Please, I am begging you, don't do what Samsung did. Alrighty, now that we got that out of the way, let's head over to Samsung, speaking of them. And apparently it seems Samsung is going to unveil a brand new foldable to their lineup. And this time it will not be a clamshell, it won't be a modded version of their foldable that they have now. This is actually going to be a rollable. Now, we've seen rollables done by Oppo and several other companies, but it looks like Samsung wants to bring this technology first. According to several reports, they do have a patent that does allow them to not only use rollable technology with a motor mechanism internally, so now you won't have to see the crease, but it says that the material will be able to expand even to a bigger display than normally advertised, which is a huge positive in every case of the word positive, because so many people have talked about the crease, so many people have talked about the hinge, so many people have talked about the dust, the water resistance. Now, to be fair, it will be using a motorized mechanical mechanism if the patent suggests that Samsung is going to go in that route, but it does offer a better compromise, and it does offer a new take on foldables, and also being able to expand it to a 10-inch. That is impressive, and you get a full screen phone. If you want any proof of what this may look like, look up the Oppo rollable foldable and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So seeing Samsung begin the early stages to develop this new foldable is an interesting take, but the question is how will they implement it and where can this fit in? Will this be the top tier of their foldables? Will the other foldables start to take price reductions? Is that how we get more consumers into it? That's what I want to find out. Alrighty, next story up is the Pixel Watch. Now, as you know, the Pixel Watch is getting closer and closer to May, since we are only a few weeks away. And we have the last set of reports saying that now the Google Wear OS will now be officially more available to developers and to other people, but not because of Fossil and other, like Samsung watches. Now there are reports coming around saying that developers are now able to start developing on Wear OS for a Google Pixel device supported smartwatch. So that means Pixel Watch. Now, as you guys know, this watch has been teased for over 3 years. 3 long years, and it all started when Google bought the development team from Fossil, then they bought Fitbit, and now we are here finally for the Pixel Watch. Now, I don't know about you guys, but the wearable market has started to finally pick up some steam. We've seen some revolutionary features coming from Apple, Samsung, and even Fitbit. And now seeing Google finally throw their hat into the ring, especially with that Fitbit integration, that should give them a huge boost in fitness technology and should definitely pivot them ahead of Fossil and other companies that use the Wear OS platform. Now, with that all being said though, the question is, when are we going to see this thing finally launch? Because it feels like forever. And when it launches, what is it going to be priced at? How open is it going to be? Will we be allowed to use it on other different, Android phones? And lastly, the last thing to take consideration of, being that it's been 3 years, what can they do that's different than any other wearable comparably to a Samsung and also even to an Apple Watch? Those are some questions that I have, and I cannot wait for Google to finally answer them when we see this thing at Google I/O reportedly. So I'll keep you guys up to date on the loop on that. Now let's get to the final story. And last story, the final story of the day, we have the Samsung Galaxy Bud 2 and Samsung Galaxy Bud Live firmware update. Now, normally I don't talk a lot about firmware updates for headphones. I usually like to do that separately on my live episodes, but this caught my attention and nobody talked about it, so I wanted to be the one to cover it. So over the past few weeks, Samsung has released a firmware update to the Samsung Galaxy Buds 2 and the Lives, enabling 360 audio, Bluetooth stable connection, and also giving a few features that were taken from the Galaxy Bud Pros over to the new Buds. Now, one of the things that I've always credited Samsung is being able to keep their earbuds up to date and also giving a better integration with their earbuds and basically giving consumers a better physical way to interact with them. Because I have, for the longest time, respected and loved the Samsung Galaxy Buds. The Samsung Galaxy Bud Pluses were my favorite earbuds of 2019 into 2020, maybe even the first ones. And I enjoyed every single release. But with that being said though, I did see Samsung starting to now become like Apple and keep them closed into their ecosystems. And this became evident because when they released the Buds Plus and the Buds Live, they were allowed to be used on an iOS device. But ever since then, Samsung has ditched the iOS platform and locked their Galaxy Buds into their ecosystem in terms of features, EQs, updates, etc. You can still use them on iOS and other devices, but you don't get the Wear app anymore, and the iOS version hasn't been updated. So it's just a shame because I really wanted to continue using Galaxy Buds for the longest time, and it really is a shame to see that Samsung would go down this path. But I'm also happy that at least they are consistent in keeping these buds up to date and giving them the latest and greatest features that they can push with them to the best of their ability. But with that being said though, Samsung, I really wish you hadn't closed them into your garden. You shouldn't have pulled an Apple on that. That was just a raw move because I actually enjoyed the Galaxy Buds, and the Galaxy Bud Pluses were my favorite of all time, especially in that Aura Blue. Man, I wish he didn't do that. And that's it for today's episode of Technoid. Now guys, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, hit the like button. If you disliked the video, you can hit the dislike button. That helps circulate my videos as well. As always, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I will see you all on the next episode. Have a great rest of your day, guys. Take care, stay safe, have a good day, and peace.